Israel's ability to destroy life in Gaza and kill 45,000 people and destroy medical facilities is only possible because of the supply of weapons, principally from the United States. Can he be very clear? Is Britain going to continue supplying weapons, including parts for jet planes and the use of RAF Akrotiri, as a route for weapons to go to Israel that are destroying life in Gaza?
Mr. Speaker, in relation to, I want to be clear about the honourable member's asking his question about fighter jets. In relation to the F-35 supply chain, where it is not possible to disentangle components which might eventually end up in Israel, there we have made a carve-out for the arms suspension. Where we are directly selling fighter jet parts, whether they are F-35 or other fighter jets, to Israel, those licences have been suspended. We will continue to have the same position in relation to the F-35 supply chain that has been discussed at this House at some length since it was announced in September, but we will, in relation to other fighter jets, take steps in accordance with the wider policy.
Mr. Speaker, you and I have been through this rigmarole many times over the last 14 months, and I was going to ask today about the fate of Dr. Abu Safir, but I think we all know what's going to happen to him. I was going to ask about the freezing babies, the babies that are freezing to death while blankets are being denied entry into Gaza, but I don't think we're going to be able to do much about that, or indeed the denial of access for cancer medication or anaesthetic or crutches, or the bombing of every single hospital. The Minister said he and his team are frustrated. But given the partial application of international law and the government's unwillingness to take any significant steps to either compel the imposition of a ceasefire or compliance with international law, rather than frustrated, isn't he ashamed that millions of people in this country and around the world believe there is an inherent racism at the heart of British foreign policy in this regard, that says that Palestinian lives matter much less than any other lives, or indeed than Israeli lives? And if he is ashamed, and the Honourable Lady who sits next to him has taken these statements before, why are they hanging on to their red folders? Why aren't they standing down and compelling the government to actually do something active and physical to save these lives?
Minister.
There are places, Mr. Speaker, I will take lessons about shame, but it is not from the benches opposite me, particularly not on this issue. If the benches opposite me want to give me a hard time about what is being done in relation to the people in Gaza, I would turn to your own record, whether it's in relation to aid into Gaza, whether it's in relation to the ICC, the ICJ. These are sober issues. We deal with them with the sobriety that they require, and I would particularly, from the opposite benches, appreciate questions of that tone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Report after report from reputable organisations, the most recent being Amnesty International, have concluded that Israel's actions in Gaza are genocidal in nature. The scale of destruction in northern Gaza is now being described as much worse than the destruction in the aftermath of Hiroshima. Will this government now change its former position and identify that Israel's actions in Gaza are indeed genocidal in nature, and what actions will be taken given the grave nature of these facts?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, determinations of genocide and war crimes are properly matters for international courts, and as the House knows, there is an international court process on that question, so I will not comment further on determination questions. What the member asks about what we are doing, let me recap again. We have taken action both in relation to arms, in relation to aid, in relation to diplomatic pressure on the Israelis, and we will continue to do so. The situation in Gaza is intolerable, and we will continue to take steps to try and reduce the suffering.